Now let us talk about the assemblies. Now we have seen who were the Cholas, who were the Pandyas, who were the Cheras, right? Now let us talk about the Sangam of all these three powers. Okay, so the major or the general context of this topic is the assembly, the Sangam, right? So what is the Sangam? The confluence of two or more powers, or one or two or more powers. Okay, so here the assemblies were known as Muchajangam. Okay, the assemblies were known as Muchajangam. Now, why am I reciting these words, keywords? Because these are being completely asked in UPSC preliminary examination. So, you should not get confused during that time or that period. That is why just have a look, take a note about these terms, important terms, and the concepts, so that you would not be getting confused again. Okay, so this is meant by the assemblies. So there were major three assemblies. The first assembly and the third assembly was being conducted in Madurai, but the second assembly, okay, was conducted in Kapadapuram. Okay, Kapadapuram. Okay, so here many of the kings were having the debates and the discussion. Poets were present, priestly class were present, common citizens were present during these assemblies. Okay, so in the first assembly which was held in Madurai, okay, which was presided by the Agastya. Okay, now the simple word is Agastya, but if you need to know the literary word, so that is Agattiyar. In the Tamil literature, they are known as the Agattiyar, but whenever you need to speak in general, they are known as Agastya. Okay, so they had no surviving works according to the present history now, but it's not that they didn't took any of the literature from all this assembly. They took, but they have not been survived up till the date. So if at present asked about the first assembly which was held in Madurai, at present we don't have any of the literary sources. Okay, after the first assembly, the Sangam period started to develop more literature with respect to the Sangam assemblies, and that is why we'll see that the resources started to be getting generated only after the second assemblies. Okay, so the most important literary source was done by Tolkappiyar. Okay, Tolkappiyar. So this Tolkappiyar had written the Tolkappiyam. Okay, the only surviving text, and that is why it is known as a grand text which tells the original incidences happened during the Sangam literature. So if you are being asked about the literature present of the Sangam age, so the first major literature is the Tolkappiyam, which is the grand and the mother literature. Okay, and after this Tolkappiyam, we'll find many of the literatures. But which is the mother literature? It is Tolkappiyam by Tolkappiyar. Okay, so Tolkappiyar wrote the Tolkappiyam, which is presently the surviving literature of the Sangam literature. After that, in the third assembly, which was again conducted in the Madurai region or the Madurai city, okay, they were presided by the Nakirar. Okay, so there were many scholars in the third. In fact, the participation of the scholars was much more in the third assembly. Okay, why? Because we'll see the intellectuals also, the traders also, the agriculturalists also would be taking part in this third assembly. Okay, and here many of the literary sources would be getting evolved. Okay, so in third assembly we had Ittutukai. Okay, that is eight anthologies, eight type ka text. Okay, eight type ka poems, which reflects the different regions of the Sangam period. Okay, and the Patu Patu, that is 10 ideals. So they would be telling us the stories about the different regions. They would be telling about the habitat of the different region, livelihood of the different people and different region. So let us study them in the depth. So these were the emblems. Okay, so this fish with respect to the Pandyas. Okay, tiger with respect to the Cholas. Okay, and the bow and arrow with respect to Cheras. Okay, so these were the Sangam of the three kingdoms or the three dynasties. Okay, so the Sangam literature, okay, is the primary literature which tells us about the South Indian context. Okay, so here first the grand text which we just talked about was the Tolkapiyam. Okay, it was Tolkapiyam, which was formed in the second assembly. Okay, so this is the earliest Sangam text. Basically it talks upon the grammar values, okay, and the linguistic values. So this is the major feature of this text. After this, there are 8 anthologies, or also known as Ittugai. Okay, Ittu means 8. Okay, Ittugai. So here it is the collection of 8 different works, including Ayangarunau, Puranaru. Okay, after that Kuruntugai, depicting love, warfare, politics, and morality. So initially also I told you that there were two kinds of poems that were being evolved during the Sangam period. So first kind of poem was based on love, okay, and second kind of poems were based on warfare activities. Okay, so in the whole Sangam text you will find two kinds of poems and two kinds of literatures. Okay, then the Pattu Pattu, that is the 10 long poems. Pattu Pattu, 10 long poems detailing the Tamil king lives and achievements. So it would be completely the second kind of text. Okay, now the Pathinikilamku, okay, which would be talking about the ethics, morality, values. So this would be depicting the first kind of poem. After that, the epic literature. Here, the story of the Kovalan and the Kannagi, the same love story which I just now recited. The Kovalan was the official in the Sangam period, and the Kannagi was his first wife, okay, from the Puhar city. Okay, and this provides the insights into the Sangam society. Now, how he married his lover, okay, and how he migrated towards the Madurai city. Why did he migrated? Okay, how was his life after the migration towards the Madurai city? What was the life of Kannagi after her husband left her alone in the Puhar city? Okay, but still when she came to know that her husband was not well treated by the people, by the society in the Madurai, okay, she again takes the stand for her husband, and this reflects the best example in the society ki how should be the wife. Okay, so it talks about the moral responsibilities of the wife which were putted in the society on the women's. Okay, so here the story tells us everything about the Kovalan and Kannagi story of livelihood. Okay, after that the Manika Megalai. Okay, so this the story of Manika Megalai, a Buddhist nun, highlights the religious and the cultural aspects. Okay, so here the Buddhist evidence is also present. So here you can take into consideration that there were many of the Buddhist texts talking about the Sangam period. In fact, Sangam literature were also talking about the Buddhism. Okay, the Buddhism present in the South India, not in North India. Okay, so this was completely different. Here the Buddhist Buddhist ideals and the sculptures were visited or worshipped in a different style, in a different way as compared to the North India. Okay, so Hinayana and Mahayana, all both kinds we had discussed in the previous sessions. Okay, after this, when you need to talk about how Tolkapiyam, now what is Tolkapiyam? The grand text of the Sangam literature. Okay, so the Tolkapiyam, which was created after the second assembly, it talks about the different regions. Okay, so what is the livelihood of different area? Okay, how the society inhabits in the different regions. So it talks about the hilly tracts, it talks about the pastoral region. Okay, it talks about the agricultural society, it talks about the coastal region, it also talks about the desert. Okay, so just try to remind these names. Now the hilly tracts are known as Kurunji, pastoral Mulai, agriculture Murudam, and coastal Nedal, desert Palai. Okay, so here the different deities were worshipped depending upon the different region. For example, if you are living in agricultural society, you are going to worship Indra god. Okay, so here the chief deity was Indra. Okay, after that, if you are having the pastoral occupation, you are going to worship Lord Vishnu. Okay, or the Lord Mayon. Okay, after that, if you are living in the hilly tracts, you are going to worship the Lord Murugan. In fact, in today's date also, Lord Murugan is quite famous. They have their own festivals, they have their own occupation, kind of occupation, tribal occupation, or whatever it is. They also have their own food culture, okay, in the hilly tracts. After that, in desert, they used to visit the Koravai. Okay, so here, depending upon the geographical location, depending upon the religious values, they had their own primary different activities too. So for example, in the hilly tracts, so there would be majorly pastoral and shifting culture. And when there is a pastoral and shifting culture in hilly tracts, you will see that the hunting is also more, right? So here the hunting and honey collection is more. In fact, in today's date also, this hilly regions exports more amount of honey in different countries. Okay, so this was followed since ancient times. Okay, after that, in the pastoral region, the cattle herding and the dairy farming was major occupation. After this, in the agricultural sector, farming and cultivation was being followed. Okay, the key inhabitants were the Ayar and the Udayar. After that, in the coastal region, that is the fishing and the salt production was the majorly focused, and the inhabitants were called as Ulavar and Velalar. After that, in the desert region, as there were no natural resources nor finished resources, you will find that the looting and raiding is majorly followed in such areas. Okay, so here they were called as a Patavar and Valayar. Okay, so major of the minorities were being present in these areas, in Palai areas. Okay, so today also, if you go in South India, you will see that minorities would be present in such Palai regions. Okay, in fact, the villages are also given the name, extended name of Palai. Okay, now what was the social structure? Okay, now if we need to talk about the social structure, now just now we talked about the division of the different regions. Okay, but when we come on the society, we need to see how the families were being established, how each individual had to share their own values and livelihood. So here the Brahmanas, okay, were present in the courts. So yes, of course, the priestly system, okay, the priestly system was still being counted. Okay, the priestly system was still being counted, and they were the major advisors to the rulers. So here the feudal elements were still present in the South India. After that, there were also landless laborers. Okay, landless laborers such as Kadaisiar Adimai, who included the slavery. So yes, slavery system was also being present. Now, as slavery system would be present, it's but obvious that the occupation was majorly the primary occupation. Okay, so this, if wherever there is slavery system, just take into consideration that the primary occupation is more in that particular region, or the primary activities are major source of revenue or the major source of income for those peoples. Okay, so there are tribal groups like the Parthavar, Panar, Ainar, Kadambar, Marwar, Pulayar, Thodas, Irulas, Nagas. So here Nagas are also present. These Nagas are different from the northeastern Nagas, and the Vedars, who form the part of the society. So again, the deserted areas had their own, deserted plus the forest areas had their own tribal society. Now, although the tribal society was different in the deserted area and the forested area, but the tribals were taken as the slaves in the kingdoms. Okay, so migration was also present, that is from rural to urban. Yes, after that, the political organization was also the hierarchical kind of organization. Okay, that is also the second reason why slavery was still being prevalent in Sangam age. Now, after that, we see that the Sangam literature included the woman participation too. So that is why women had at least a good position during the Sangam period. That is the conclusion of the social status. Okay, after that there were also some of the famous poets. Now in UPSC preliminary examination 2024, the question was asked based on the names of the women poets of the Sangam literature. Okay, so who were the women poets? Avayar, Nacheliyar, and the Kakai Padiniyar contributed immensely to the Tamil literature. Beyond that, the Sangam literature also talks about the kinship relations. Okay, so the polygamy was, of course, being followed, as I told you in one of the story. After that, love marriages were common. So here you can say that they were having their own independence to marry their own choices. Okay, so which was absent in the Gupta period in northern India. Okay, after that, the woman had autonomy to choose their life partners, which was again absent during the Gupta period. So these are some of the social differences which you will see between North and South India. Okay, now after this, there were some of the virtues that were being followed. So first, Karpu, okay, Karpu was regarded as the highest virtue for the woman, okay, which emphasized the purity and the loyalty towards the family, towards the society as well. Okay, so here orthodox orthodox system was still being prevalent. Okay, you can say that orthodox system was still prevalent. Orthodox system was still being prevalent. After that, widowhood was also being present. That is, the widows used to face n number of challenges in the society. For example, in Sangam period, we'll get the evidences of the sati pratha. Okay, now what is sati pratha? Once the husband dies, the woman has to get into that funeral or the fire and end her life immediately after the husband. Okay, without leaving any stress. Okay, so here the sati pratha, okay, sati pratha is termed as the tippayadal. Now sati pratha is called as a tippayadal, that is self immolation. Okay, it was prevalent in the higher classes, though it was not widespread, but it was present in the higher classes. Okay, so as like the varna system in the Sangam period also, they had their own kind of varna system. Okay, so in varna system, the topmost were the Brahmins, right? The topmost were the Brahmins, but in Sangam period, the topmost were the Kshatriyas. Okay, after that there were the priestly classes, that is Brahmins. Okay, after that the Vaishyas and the Shudras. Okay, so this was a difference in the Sangam age. Just these two are interchanged. Okay, so the Sati Pratha was being carried out, or the widowhood, widows faced the social ostracism or the social challenges to live freely, to dwell freely in the society. Okay, after that, when we talk about the religion, okay, when we talk about the religion, we see that they used to worship the natural gods. Okay, they used to worship natural gods. For example, if the farmer has to pray to the god, he has to pray it to the Indradev. Okay, Indradev or the Indiradev. Okay, so depending upon the occupation, the gods were being worshipped. Okay, so after that, the nature first is nature worship. What is Indra? Nature worship, right? And the animals were also being worshipped. Now if you see the coins during the Sangam period, they talk many things about this animism. Okay, animals were being worshipped. Now for example, if you see in northern India, cows were being worshipped. Okay, so similar way in southern India, the animals were worshipped, like for example tiger. Okay, for example, you can say about the cows were also worshipped. Okay, so these are some of the examples. After that, Murugan god. Murugan god was the primary deity, okay, which used to reside at the hills. Okay, so at the top of the hills, Murugan lives. Okay, now who is the Murugan? It is one form of the Vishnu only. Okay, it is one form of the Vishnu only. So Murugan god was being majorly worshipped, and there were after there were other deities also. One, the Mayon, that is also another form of Vishnu only. After that, Indra and Varuna. So here Indra and Varuna are the natural gods or the nature based gods. Okay, so here the animals as well as the nature is being worshipped. After that, let us talk about the economy. So, depending upon the geographical condition, economy was being concentrated. So, wherever there were the plain areas or the non-forest areas or non-deserted areas, the agriculture was being carried out. Previously, it had shifting agriculture, but as and when the civilization grew, okay, the civilization became more, updated, hierarchical. Okay, that time we'll see that the agriculture was major activity that was being carried out in the Sangam period. So here major of the paddy occupation or the paddy cultivation was being focused. Okay, it was paddy cultivation which was majorly focused. Okay, paddy was the main crop in the Chola and the Pandya. Okay, now where are Cholas and the Pandyas? Chola here and Pandya here, right? So both of them had paddy. What is paddy? Paddy means rice, right? So after that, Chera, okay, Chera, as this is totally jungle area, Nilgiri Hills, right? Jungle area. So here, Chera majorly had jackfruit, jackfruit and pepper, black pepper, which is still the major occupation in this area. Okay, so jackfruit and the pepper in the Chera, and Chola and Pandya had the paddy cultivation. So these were the major economic or the agricultural focus in the Sangam age. After that, markets were operated on the barter system. Although initially it was a barter system, but after that they used to have the coins, okay, the metal coins, and also some of the evidences found were of the stone coins, like a stone is being carved out. Okay, a hard stone, hard rock is being carved out, replacing, like showing some of the animal. Okay, some of the animal on that particular stone. Okay, so here, uh, in the places like Madurikanchi, okay, where day and night markets were being present. What are day and night markets? The market which serve 24 into 7 hours. Okay, so present day also these markets are being present, where they have the organic products in today's date. Okay, so yes, after that, weaving of the textile, weaving of the cotton was also world famous. I have told you that the Urayur or the Puhar city was well known for its textile. Okay, so here it is Puhar, Puhar city of Cholas. Okay, after that, the metal working and carpentry was also world famous. Why? Because the designs were completely different than from the Romans or the North Indians. And you will see that the influence of the Roman is very less in this area as compared to the influence of the Roman in the North India. Okay, so here majorly the Dravidian style would be evolving. The Dravidian style would be evolving. After that, as these were the coastal people, okay, they were depending upon the coastal activities, fishing or hunting, okay, or the salt making. Okay, so all these coastal people used to have one another main occupation, that is shipbuilding, as they focused on the trade relation, international trade relation, to make more profit through the production of their local markets. Okay, so shipbuilding was also the major occupation in this coastal areas. After that, the ornament making with respect to the beads, stones and ivory was being focused during the Sangam period. Now, when we talk further, the economy included or majorly focused on the exports and the imports. Okay, so what were the exports and the imports? Just try to remember here. The imports were very less, but they were highly valued imports. Okay, now if in present date, if we see, our imports are more than the exports in present day. Okay, and that is why we face the budget deficit. But during that time, although the quantity of the imports were less, okay, but the exports were more. Okay, so here the imports were gold, horses and sweet wine. Okay, what were the exports? Cotton, fabric, spices like pepper, ginger, cardamom, cinnamon, turmeric, ivory products, pearls and precious stones. So these precious stones were sold out in a raw format, in a raw way, and then they were given the shape in the international markets only. Okay, but the raw sources were taken from the Indian continent since ancient India. And that is why you will see in the modern times also, in the modern history also, Britishers would be having an eye on the peninsular Indian, especially with respect to these products only. Okay, now why these products were being sold? Because if you see the environment, okay, or the climatology in those western countries is quite extreme. Okay, it is it is very hot during the summers and it is very cold during the winters. Okay, so that is why you will see, especially the winter climate nations, okay, there you will see that many of them would be demanding the spices, cinnamon, okay, cardamom, to preserve their meat. Okay, now the western people largely have the non-vegetarian diets. Okay, now to preserve this meat, they need black pepper, right? So this meat can be preserved for a long period of time, and that is why you will see that these products were on the large demand in the international market, and in a good price, in a good amount of price. Okay, so this were present only in the South India and very minimally present in the North India. Okay, so the major of these exports are totally different from that of the northern India. Okay, after that, the coins were issued by the Roman emperors, which tells us about the trade relations that were present with the South Indian peninsular region. Okay, like for example, the Roman emperors like the Augustus, Tiberius, Nero found throughout the Tamil Nadu indicate the thriving trade relations. Okay, so here the coins which were being found, they were present from the Roman empires. Okay, so here we can know that the Romans gave us those coins and they took away our